Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Rangers. I'm your host, Kyle McLean, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ross Chalmers. Ross, it's been a bit of a mad week for you. How are you getting on after that one?
Yeah, I'm very well. It's been an unfortunate week for me with this house move. It's not went as smoothly as I wanted it to, and I made a couple of jokes about this on Twitter. I've realised how much I rely on the internet professionally and personally, which is pretty grim. But yeah, it was a tough week up until Thursday. Thankfully, I'm back. I'm online. I can actually do my job and things again. So yeah, other than that, very, very good. The house move went as smooth as you could, possibly like. And yeah, that came at the end and made it a wee bit more difficult. But no, I'm in, thankfully, and yeah, it's been a good week overall. Other than that kind of scenario.
I know, perfect timing to get internet just so you can watch all those 8 goals going back in again. But as always, we'll get straight into it. Rangers booked their place in the next round of the Scottish Cup with a pretty emphatic 8-0 win over Queen's Park. There was no PTSD from last season, which was good to see. We saw Rangers lining up in a 4-4-2 formation, something Danny Röhl sort of had been hinting about over the past few weeks, especially when we were talking about signing Ryan Naderi, when he kept saying, he could play as a 2 up top. And given the game and the level of opposition, it was a pretty strong starting 11, I should say. For the first minute, Rangers looked really, really confident and ruthless, footing the pedal early, I would say. And importantly, they never really took it off. Naderi got us off to a perfect start. Tav got a hat-trick, including a penalty, or his usual penalty in that first half. And then there was an own goal before the break. But good to see Rangers just completely in control of this one. Second half followed very much the same pattern. It was an early goal for Naderi, a Miovski header, and then a really, really, really tidy finish from Chukwuani, who is becoming a very, very favourite player of mine. But what stood out to me in that game, Ross, was the variety of goals. There wasn't just one pattern over and over again. It was different types of crosses, different movements in the box, different finishes. I totally understand the level of opposition today, but it was important for Rangers to keep that momentum going, to continue building the habit of being ruthless right into the final whistle. And for the second game in a row, Ross, it was just nice going to Ibrox, it being so fun, and Rangers just absolutely putting a team to the sword.
Yeah, I think Danny Röhl's maybe been looking for that type of statement win. He's maybe not had that so far. So in terms of like the overall goals scored. So yeah, I think it was a really professional performance from us today. Composed. I thought they treated the game with the right attitude, the right mentality, because I think sometimes we've seen in the past, and especially in Scottish Cup games over the last few years, that Rangers come out and they don't really perform to the level, and it ends up being a really difficult game. Of course, you referred back to Queen's Park last year. That was a really difficult moment for us, but we've seen other games that really we've scraped through as well. There's several I can think off the top of my head. So I was really pleased to see us come out today and really treat it with the right attitude. And I think we got our rewards. I think from the start, we were really, really good. A lot of good attacking patterns of play today that we've maybe not seen so far under Danny Röhl. It's maybe just to be that about churning out in terms of results, and then maybe the performance levels haven't been there. I thought we've seen a little bit more today, and maybe starting to see this side starting to shape into what he wants, that kind of image. And we'll maybe talk about that in terms of the shape we lined up with later on in the podcast. But yeah, really, really happy. I mean, if you score 8 goals at home to any opposition, you're going to be delighted. And I thought there was a lot of really good goals in there as well. I'm sure we'll refer back to the set pieces too. So big thing for me as well, Kyle, is the new signings. They've all came in, they've all slotted in really well. And they don't look out of place at all. And I think they've just given a little bit more to this side going forward. So yeah, overall, absolutely delighted. It can't be understated how big a win that is in terms of setting us up for the next week. And yeah, if you score 8 goals at home, you're going to be happy about it. So yeah, I certainly am.
Yeah, no, delighted to get 8 goals, regardless of the opposition. And as you said, just a good all-round performance. But just want to pick up on something that you said there in terms of the new signings and the impact that they've had in the squad. Obviously, the January transfer window, not an easy transfer window, but early days, but Rangers seem to have done quite well in it. What the clear tactics for what this transfer window was is to cut the numbers down. When you look at some of the players that went out, like your Danilos, Incialas, Rothwells, Dowells, Lyle Cameron, I nearly said Rabbi Matondo there. That's how you know today was a good game, that even though he made an appearance, that it didn't tarnish it whatsoever. But we've obviously gone out, invested or put some serious investment into the squad. All 4 of the new signings, that's the first time they've started today. With Naderi up top, Skov, Olsen, Rommens, Chukwuani. I'm sure we'll get into talking about some of the individual performances, Ross. But how important has it been for the squad as a whole, just having quality coming in, and how much of an impact do you think that's had? And are we seeing that so far?
Yeah, I think this is probably where you need to give the club a lot of credit, because I think as a support, we all went into January and felt that it can't just be squad additions. Even though we feel we didn't have the squad depth, it can't be players that you think can come in and rotate and help you. You've got to add quality. And actually, I think in the podcast that we had done just before the window opened, I actually remember saying it had to be 3 or 4 quality additions. It was after the game at Parkhead. I think everyone felt at that point, okay, there's something here. You're building something with this manager. We all know he's not got the squad that that's capable at the moment of sustaining a title charge. I think what the club have done is they've went and backed the manager, and I think they do deserve a lot of credit for that, because it's not easy, the January window. In terms of the players themselves, I think it's clear to see that we have signed good players. Now, of course, it's early days. We've seen plenty of players come in at Rangers and hit the ground running and then fade away. We've also seen the opposite. We've seen plenty of players come in and not really show much, and then later on they show their ability. So, of course, we're going to have to maybe temper expectations a little bit, but I've been impressed with all of them, actually. I think Andrew Skov Olsen's the one that maybe people still have a little bit of, or they question so far in terms of the status of the player coming in, the reputation he had. We've maybe not seen too much of it. But actually, I thought through the week against Kilmarnock, he was really good, and it was a really good finish. And I thought he had a lot of really good touches against Queen's Park over the weekend as well. But yeah, I think the quality is definitely there. So they bring that. I think what also helps as well in terms of a squad is, and it rejuvenates the energy a little bit. I think if you're a footballer and you're in any squad and you see quality walking through the door, it gives you a boost. It really does. Like, if you're seeing these boys walk into training, you think, oh, these are good players. Like, we're signing good players. That has to give everyone confidence in what you're going to do. They'll feel more confident in that squad now, that if one comes out and the next one that comes in, you're going to have enough to potentially go and get results. So I'm really enthusiastic about the window so far. Of course, we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. It's always the same with Rangers. You maybe try and, I did say it last week, I think, that I'm trying not to get too up or too down with any signing at the moment. But I think from what we've seen early, I think you're seeing the individual quality, but I think you're also seeing what they've brought to the squad as well. And Danny Röhl's big on that, isn't he? He always talks about it's a squad game, everyone's going to play their part. And I think he's done that really well so far. And I think what he's done well is he's brought these new boys in actually quite slowly, right? He's kind of bedded them all in. He's given them all opportunities. He's not overworked them in terms of minutes, and he's just allowing a little bit of rhythm to develop without too much pressure. So again, a lot of credit to the manager. But your overall point, Kyle, I completely agree. I think you're seeing the benefits now of that January window, and I'm really happy about it, because I think we all felt a support. That's what we needed. And it's not as simple as that. Sometimes you can sit as a supporter and say, we absolutely have to go and sign 3 or 4 quality additions, but sometimes it's just not possible. The club managed to do that this January, and I'm hoping that by the end of the season we can look back and say that was the turning point. That January window was the turning point. So yeah, you can probably hear the optimism in my voice. I'm looking forward to seeing more of these guys.
Yeah, I think that it's just nice to see a team going out, clearly identify areas that need strengthened, and for that team to be Rangers, and then for them to actually go out and, as you said, get good players in those positions that need strengthened in. But I just want to touch on what you said about the Skov Olsen, because you're right, there is quite a few people that do. I've seen a bit of frustration that he's not, fully up to speed. But I just think that's a player whose decision making is so good. See, if you look at it, he so rarely wastes the ball. If the run's not on, he's not going to try it just for the sake of it. He will recycle it and go in and start another phase of play for Rangers. But yeah, obviously these guys have come in. The guy that a lot of people left Ibrox talking today about is our big new number 20. The last time we had a number 20 up front for Rangers, we all fell in love with him. We all still think about him fondly. But it's Ryan Naderi. I just thought, again, caveat it with the level of opposition he's playing against, but you can only come up what you're playing against. But two really good goals. I thought the timings of these goals were really important for Rangers, both really early on in each half. But for me, it was more than that. It was just his movement off the ball was really good. He was angling runs. He was going behind, sitting on the last man. Really pushing defenses. Forcing defenders to turn as well. That was just a really all good round performance for me, Ross. But what did you think of Ryan Don Naderi's contribution in his first start for Rangers today?
I certainly can't disagree with your assessment of him so far. I've been really impressed. Really, I think as soon as he came off the bench the other night at home at Ibrox against Kilmarnock, I just felt there was something there. You know what? Everyone gets this, and sometimes people are wrong. Like, we all have that kind of initial impression of a player. But I think you just seen within a couple of minutes, you thought, oh, there's something there, actually. Just the way he was kind of charging around the park, and his first couple of touches were really good. And I think he just took that on today. I just thought he was really good. I think he looks to me like an all-round striker, so he can do a little bit of everything. I'm not saying he's the complete package. He's not finished. Like, he's only 22. There's some things he's going to have to develop over time. I do think he's kind of got that instinct though, in and around the box and that kind of one-touch play. And he's so physical that he can bring something different to us off the ball as well. Like, I can imagine being a centre back. He would be my worst nightmare playing against a centre back because he's massive. So you know that you're going to have a difficulty when he's got the ball. But then when the ball turns over and you've got it, he's never going to give you a moment's peace. He's constantly going to press you. And he's got the energy and the intensity in his game to do that. So I'm really impressed with him so far. I think the two goals are actually really good because I think the first one, it comes to the back post. How many times do you see, a player in that position, not necessarily a striker, any player, where they'll just really, it's just about getting your head on it and trying to get it towards goal. I think he's actually really assessed where he wants to put it. It's like a really controlled finish and he gets the benefit of it. The second one as well, for me, okay, there's some poor defending in there from Queen's Park, let's be honest. It's not great. But what I do like about it is Ant-Man stands the ball up and Naderi is that's just determination to get there. He wants to be the one that gets on the end of that. And with that kind of frame, and I think he's 6'3", isn't he? You're going to have a big advantage over a lot of players in that box. So, yeah, I'm really enthusiastic about him. I think there's a lot more to come. I do think quite quickly he's probably going to become the first choice striker. I just think there's something there. I think Danny Röhl will really start to take to him pretty quickly and think, okay, maybe you are only 22 and there's a lot more to come. But actually, if we just continue to play you, you're going to continue to get better and get better. So yeah, I really like it. I really loved his interview after the game as well. It's really humble when him and James Tavernier were talking about the player of the match, and he won it, and he wanted to give it to Tav and said, look, 3 goals and assists, he deserves it. So I like that as well. A little bit of humility there. He seems like a really down to earth boy, and he obviously wants to come here and do his best. But yeah, so far, really impressed. And again, as in my previous answer, I think you have to give the club credit because they could have quite easily went, okay, we've agreed a deal for the summer here and we know it's coming. We know that player's going to come in the summer. It's all signed off. And they could have said, look, we're not going to pay over the odds to get him here now. We're not going to do that. But actually, they've done the opposite because I'd imagine Danny Röhl's probably sitting and going, look, I think that's a player that can really make a difference for us now. Like, if we have the funds there to go and do that, we should do it. And okay, that's made that deal a lot more expensive. I think it's an extra 1.5, 2 million on top of what we're actually going to pay at the end of the year. So I think the club deserve credit for that because they've went out, they've backed the manager, and they said, okay, we're going to give you what you believe is required. So yeah, I am very, very impressed about this boy. Like I said right at the start, sometimes you get a feeling with a player, don't you? When you first see them, you just get a little, oh, there's something there. And I've certainly got that with Ryan Naderi.
It's those sliding doors moments, in it, because as you say, I think you're totally right to point out, spending an extra couple of million quid to go and get this over the line. Because if you remember, it was a few years ago when they were saying if Rangers go out and get Shankland, but we just were not willing to pay that money, which might have guaranteed you a league title. But it looks like Rangers have gone out, they've backed the manager, which I think says a lot. But yeah, you just touched on it there. The 2 goals that he scored, that's the type of goals that I actually thought Chermiti would score with his stature and his, the way he is in the team. But he's just not seemed to be bringing that. But just before we move on, Ross, the way he moved and ran, I thought he was really, really good at creating space for people off the ball. But do you think that him coming into the squad, and as you've already alluded to, you think he might sort of become that first choice striker? Do you think he just brings, I don't know, it's very early days, an element of unpredictability that the other strikers in the team don't have at the moment?
Yeah, probably a little bit of that, and I think you can use that to your advantage sometimes, can't you? Because opposition will probably find it difficult to analyse Ryan Naderi at the start because they're not going to have a lot to look back on. Of course, they'll look at Hansa Rostock and his performances there, but we might ask him to do things that are a little bit different here, and you're maybe going to have to take a little bit of time to get used to him. I do think there is a little bit of unpredictability in his play, but I actually quite like it. I quite like it. I think he can just bring something that's a little bit different from what the two that we've got already. I personally think, and Danny Röhl's referred to this a couple of times, and you maybe seen that in the shape today. Like, we're going to try and go with two strikers, and especially domestically, a little bit more towards the end of this season. And I think that's why he's going to become the first choice, because I think he'll play, and then it will be one of the other two that play off him. That's the way I look at it. I think he'll be the one that leads the line, and it will either be a Miovski or a Chimiti that's going to be the striker that kind of plays off. And I don't really mind that. I think that's the way it would work for me. It actually just looks like a more comfortable finisher as well in areas. So yeah, I think there's definitely unpredictability about him, maybe just because of that stage of his career, and there is some raw attributes still. There's no way he's the finished package. He's going to take time to develop. But sometimes you've got to bring players in like that, and we've said it several times, and I'm sure the club are probably thinking about this when they signed him last week, that sometimes you've got to make this deal now, because if you don't, someone like a team in a top 5 league are going to come in potentially in the summer. They're going to offer double what you're offering, and probably the same with the salary, and he's going to go. So yeah, maybe Rangers know that there's not the perfect package there so far, but you give him 6 months to a year of, competitive football at a higher level, you're going to get a much better player out of it. So yeah, I think there's a lot to work with.
Yeah, I cannot wait till he's up to speed. And like I said, Danny Röhl has made virtually every player in the squad better since he came in. And the fact they've just plucked a guy out the German third division. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what a manager like Röhl can do.
Can I ask you something in this? So, and then again, it's very early days, and maybe we won't know what the lineup's going to be at Fir Park during the week, right?
We're going there already.
just kind of hypothetically, right? If you seen Ryan Naderi starting that game, would that give you more confidence? Because that's where I am at the moment already. Like, I feel he's that type of striker that would give that Motherwell defence a real problem, because you know that this game's going to be that Rangers are probably not going to dominate the ball. I think he's someone when the ball turns over, he can really threatening. And then even if you do get the ball in and around the box, he's such a physical stature. Like, it's going to be so difficult to deal with him. Like, that's when I am with it already. I know it's really early days, but I just look at it and think I would be really confident of him playing in that game and making a difference. And maybe that comes back to the previous question, right? It's an unpredictability. Like, I'm looking at it and going, I'm not really sure what, like, I just feel like he could potentially do something more than the other two could do. I wonder what your thoughts on that. Like, for me, it's very early days, but I think a lot of those new signings, you're looking at them thinking, I feel a lot more confident actually with those boys in the park.
Yeah, I would have absolutely no qualms, chucking him in against Motherwell straight away. But, Röhl's a very pragmatic man. And we've been on here in the past saying the team hasn't looked as strong without Chimiti up top. We've missed Chimiti. So it depends how fit Chimiti is. I think one thing we can both agree on is that I don't think we'll be vying for Miovski to start up top that game. But like you said it there, the new players that we brought in, the next guy I want to talk about, and I just love the way he goes about his business. I was so impressed with him when he made his first appearance, and that's Tochi Chukwuani. He is a second ball merchant. He just wins so many second balls in the middle of the park, which is something that we've really, really struggled to do in the past. But on top of that, he's just so good at getting it and just shifting it on. I thought he looked, that's the first time we've seen him being, a bit of a menace from the set piece today as well. And again, I know it was the 8th goal, but he took that goal so well in the whatever it was, the 89th minute or the 90th minute, I think it even was. Maybe the goal that I was expecting Telo Asgard to score a bit more for Rangers, but he was I thought that was a really, really good performance from Tochi Chukwuani, and I think he's going to be really key to the way that Danny Röhl wants this Rangers squad to play.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with everything you've said there on him as a player. What I really like about him is he's, and I think I referred to this maybe last week, so I apologise for maybe if I'm repeating myself, but I really enjoy how good he is on both sides. Like he's really comfortable on right and left foot, and I think that gives you a different dynamic in midfield because I think he's then comfortable at carrying the ball either side, and it allows you to kind of stretch things a little bit more. Very composed. Positionally, I think he's really good as well. He's kind of that one of those players that kind of senses danger pretty quickly. I think that's something we've maybe not had a lot of, especially when Connor Barron's been out, because I think he's that type of player as well. Yeah, I'm the same as you. I'm really encouraged by him. I actually feel like I'm just on this podcast and I'm going to just give the club so much credit tonight. But I think a lot of people in the sport would have probably said that that type of profile of midfielder in Tochi Chukwuani probably wasn't something we needed in this window. To be fair, I think a lot of people will, and I know I was right at the start when I looked at the profile. I thought, I'm not really sure. Do we really need a player like that? But actually, again, fair play because you brought someone in and he's made a noticeable difference so far in that midfield. And I think there is a lot more to come from him. And again, it shows his goal scoring side to say, okay, maybe doesn't get the first one because it ends up rebounding off a Queen's Park player, I believe. I think he claimed it. But the second one's really good. It's actually really good football from Rangers, like in and around the box. Really good one-touch stuff. I think it's Asgard that maybe gets the assist for that, if I remember. But yeah, he does well, shift on his left foot, and it's a great finish. And yeah, there's real competition for places in there now. And for me, personally, as it stands, I would probably have Diomande and Raskan as my two at the moment. But if you put a Tochi Chukwuani in there, I'm not going to be too critical of that. And maybe again, you've seen that different dynamic today between Diomande and Chukwuani that maybe a Raskan isn't required to play every single game because I think that's what we've been looking at in the last couple of years. And then there is the potential that he maybe moves on in the summer and things like that. So yeah, I think the Chukwuani signing for me is real forward planning from Rangers. I think they've looked at this and thought, okay, it's maybe not unnecessarily a midfielder we need right now, but in 6 months we might really need a Tochi Chukwuani. So we're going to bring him in now and we're going to bed him in. And there's maybe not the pressure to play every single week, but when it comes to the summer, he will be one of the first names in the team sheet every single week. So yeah, I've been really impressed with him, Kyle. I think there's a really good player in there, and I do think again he can develop because he's only 24. Is it Tochi Chukwuani? I might be wrong on that.
I'm not sure. I need to double check.
Yeah, I have to check that, but I don't think he's not old. Do you know what I mean? He's not even in his peak
22.
yet. So 22. There you go. So I've actually added 2 years to him. That shows you how good a player I think he is because he obviously looks a lot more experienced. But yeah, I think someone that's coming in with 150 is it 150 is it European games or no 150 games for Sturm Graz and then he played 30 games or something in Europe. 150 European games would have been some going. At 22 as well. Wow, he must have started when he was 12. But yeah, I think there's a good player there, and I think we can build on it.
Yeah, that's it. If Skov Olsen's not going back to the Danish national team manager and going, here, why is this guy not playing for us? I'll be surprised. But yeah, that's the exact point you have. It's really, really good future planning now because it makes me feel a lot more comfortable about the summer and Raskan because we're all expecting him to go over to the United States and have a brilliant World Cup. But I think I said it on X before the game, but I was really looking forward to seeing the two of the midfield pairing, Diomande and Chukwuani, and I thought they were really, really good. I think Chukwuani brings out the best in Diomande at times, and even at that, I think Diomande, apart from a shooting, before you say anything, by the way, Ross, has looked a much, much better player. He just looks to have more. When the two of them are playing together, they just look to be really like in control of the game and just be really, really composed. And as I said at the start, the biggest thing for me is just snuffing out so many second balls in the middle of the pitch, allowing us to recycle and to go on. But the last of the new players that I want to talk about, again, I know today it wasn't as brilliant as what he was against Kilmarnock, and that is Tuur Rommens, everybody's already dubbing him the new Arthur Newman, the new Sasa Papic. But he was brilliant again today, just in terms of his movement. And it was dead noticeable, Ross, when you could see him going down that left-hand side. He does the underlap, he does the overlap. Again, there's just lots of variety. But to me, he's not just smashing the ball in the box first time. He's considerate. He's picking out his passes and waiting for the personnel to get in the box. There was a tweet that I saw, and I can't not mention it. I found it so funny, and it was Rangers Football Club thanks Jade Magoma for his services, and I just thought that was brilliant. Very, very harsh on Jade Magoma, who has been fantastic this season. But again, Tuur Rommens, he just looks like the right guy at the right time, and another really good bit of future planning, Ross.
Yeah, definitely. I think that might have been the best Rangers debut I'd seen in a long time the other night against Kilmarnock. I mean, I don't think I've left the ground and spoken to so many people and everyone had the same opinion. Like, everyone was coming away from that game the other night and all they wanted to talk about was Tuur Rommens. Like, you'd won the game 5-1 and everyone was just going, what about that Rommens boy that came on? He was unbelievable. Like, he genuinely, that was such a good performance. It's funny as well because when Rangers sign any player, you always do your homework, you read analysis, you watch YouTube clips, whatever, you read, X threads on players because that's really popular now. And the big thing that everyone said about him was the overlapping and underlapping runs. And there was lots of, analysis articles about that. He was like the third most dangerous when it came to overlapping and underlapping runs in Europe or something like that. And then you see it straight away. Like, it didn't like he needed a couple of weeks to bed in. I mean, he came on the other night and he was just bombing up and down the line constantly. And I think you've seen a little bit of that over the weekend, maybe not as much. And I think that maybe shape change in the second half maybe reduced that a little bit. Also, you maybe had an Ant-Man that was maybe a slightly different profile in front of him and things like that. So I think there's certainly a really, really good player there. I agree with you as well. My big frustration with Rangers in the last few years is that, one, I don't think we get to the byline enough. It's a real frustration of mine because I think it's such an effective way of creating chances. Like, if you can get a player to the byline, it just creates uncertainty in defences because whether you flash it across goal, you chip it to the back post, you cut it to the penalty spot, whatever, it's difficult to defend against. But actually then, if we do always get there, I always feel like we make the wrong decision. And I always remember watching Scott Wright. I know that's a weird one to reference back to, but he was always one of the ones where I was like, he does so well, he does a lot of good work and he gets to the byline, and then he never has the final ball. And maybe there's a little bit of that in Gassama as well. For me, Tuur Rommens, when he came on the other night, I thought it as well over the weekend. I think you're right. It's not a hit and hope. It's a real. Maybe he doesn't always necessarily see the player in the right position, but in his mind, he thinks, "What's the statistic? Like, what's the highest statistical chance here of me creating a chance for someone? Okay, in this position, I'm going to cut the ball to the penalty spot." And actually, the big thing I think with that as well is, and it shows you probably the intelligence of Skov Olsen. Skov Olsen's always making that run to the penalty spot. And I think that's something he's probably developed over time as well. And that's where he gets his goal against Kilmarnock as well, and he digs it out. So I think it's a really, really good player there. I do feel for Jaden Magoma as well, because I actually think he's went under the radar a little bit this season. I think to come up here at 19 years old, and he came through at Southampton, didn't he? He got that move to Brentford. Then he went on loan to Preston, and it didn't really work out for him. I think coming up here at 19, he's not got a lot of first-team football behind him, and he's played over 30 games. And to be honest with you, there's only a handful of games where I could really pick out and say he's not done well. I think European games, I think he's maybe struggled a little bit. And again, that's a much higher level, and I think that's fair. But again, you would expect that from a 19-year-old, that he's going to take time and he's going to develop. Unfortunately, we're not going to get the benefit of that. That's the loan system sometimes. Mikey Moore's exactly the same. But yeah, I think that I know the tweet you're referring to. I think it was Football Stuart that tweeted it actually. And it's a good bit of banter, to be honest. It's obviously a joke. But I think you're right to bring it up. Magoma has been really good, but maybe you're seeing a Tuur Rommens here with a little bit more experience behind him, because he is that type of player. He's played more first-team football, I think. So maybe that's what you're seeing. But overall, I think you've got two good left-backs there now that can really push each other on. There's competition for places. I think you're seeing that throughout the squad. Competition for places. Like, people are And just to go back a little bit, the Diomande, Raska, and Chukwuani, like that's really going to benefit all of them. They're all going to benefit from it. And then when you throw a Conor Barron back into the mix, he was on fire before he got injured. So yeah, I think overall we've done really well. The market's been really successful for us. Let's just go and deliver on it at the end of the season.
Yeah, that's it. I'm so impressed with Rommens since he came in and just his influence in the squad. And like you said, it can only benefit if we've got competition. It's going to bring the best out and play. I mean, it's no surprise that most professional football players are pretty competitive guys. So great to see that we finally got that in there. Just a couple of other wee bits and bobs to touch up on here, Ross, and it was. It'd be remiss of us not to mention Scott Fry's influence, which was all over that game. You know, you could see him as he is most weeks. Every time, I was going to say every time Rangers conceded a corner, but I don't even think we did today. But you know, every time we've got one, he's out on the edge of the box. 6 of the 8 goals that Rangers scored today all came from crosses. If you want to say that, you can include the penalty as a set piece goal technically as well. But it was just so nice to see like very, very noticeable variations in the routines that he's got today. And it's just really nice to see a Rangers team that look drilled and coached to be able to execute these things so well. And that's I didn't mean for that to become across as a dig, but it now sounds like a dig, doesn't it?
I think Scott Fry is quickly turning into the Manny Fernandez of this podcast, where he's just going to get mentioned every single week. And I think I tweeted out a few weeks ago on the account saying we're set piece merchants, and I totally believe we are. And you know what? I'm not bothered. Like, and I think you said it to me before we came live that Danny Röhl was speaking about it and basically saying, I don't care how we score. And honestly, I don't care how we score either. I remember having a discussion with someone on Twitter about this a couple of weeks ago and saying, we're just so dreadful from open play. And do you know what? See, at times we have been, but Rangers are winning games, and they're winning games by scoring set-piece goals. That's fine. No one's denying that we have to improve in the open play. Of course we do. If you want to reach the top levels and you want to have sustained success, you need to be able to score from set pieces and open play, of course. But it's such a huge weapon for us. I think we look threatening at every single set piece, which I think is rare. Like, you don't see many teams where you think, oh, every time they get a chance here of this going to the box, there's a good chance they're going to score. Obviously, Arsenal down south are really good for that as well. So, yeah, he deserves a lot of credit. I mean, with the job Scott Fry has done since he came in is absolutely phenomenal. I don't know what the set piece record is in terms of how many we've scored since he came in and how many we've scored before. That would be really interesting to go back and look on. But it must be remarkable, like when you look at that and sit down and look at the data. So he deserves a lot of credit. I think Danny Röhl deserves a credit for probably recognising that he needs a set piece coach within his team. And yes, okay, I'll say it as well because everyone will be like, I can't believe you're bringing it up. Kevin Thelwell probably deserves credit for this one as well because I think he went out and found them. So club have done well there again. And I think we're just going to have to mention them every single week, Kel, because I think that's how threatening we are from set pieces now. Like, I think we're going to score a set piece most weeks. And that is definitely down to Scott Fry.
Yeah, that's you banned from Let's Talk Rangers for mentioning Thelwell's name again on here. But yeah, see, the thing about that, Ross, is see us being so good at set pieces now. That's one of the first times, watching a game that I've seen the psychological impact that it was having on the opposition, because you could tell after our third, fourth corner, Queen's Park were just like, oh no. Like, not again, because they knew we were going to get a chance from it. That's why I think the keeper totally, and yeah, it's definitely Tav's goal. But when he sort of tries to punch it and sklaffs at it, that I just think that's all because mentally he's going, oh, we are not going to cope well here with this corner coming in because no team's coping well with it. The next aspect of the game I want to talk about, and it's something that Röhl, I don't know, like I said, especially when he's buying Naderi in, he did say, we could maybe see him as 2 up top, and I think it caught everybody off by surprise today, or maybe not yours. I think you're going to tell me otherwise, because I think you did predict a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-2 lineup. But what did you make of that sort of, it's very Red Bull, isn't it? It's very much the philosophy that Danny Röhl steeped in and that's his whole thing is that. But it's not his whole thing is the Red Bull philosophy, but that's where he got his foundation and his training. But what did you make of it all, and what did you make of especially Miovski's role in this? Because he seemed, even the Kilmarnock game, he seemed to be very deep. Do you think that that's a role that suits him? Being the sort of deeper of the two strikers, Ross, in that system.
Miovski's just turned it. See, since that second half against Kilmarnock the other night, he's just turned into a number 10. He's just went, I'm not striker anymore. I'll just be a number 10. Yeah, strange, but I suppose I think we referenced it earlier. If you are going to play with a two, you're going to need one of the strikers to drop in and help the midfield, and maybe Miovski's the one that is potentially volunteered to do that, or Danny Röhl has asked him to do that because he maybe thinks a Naderi is better at leading the line. I personally do, so I can understand it. I'm not sure long term whether that would be something that I would be looking to do. I'm not quite sure that Miovski's got that kind of link up play that you would want in certain areas. I think he is he is a number 9, obviously a different type to Ryan Naderi and Yusuf Chamiti, but I certainly don't think he's a number 10. So that wouldn't be the preference for me. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Taylor Asgard plays in that role quite a lot, where he plays high in the two up front and then he drops in to help out. That's probably something I would expect to see. I do think Danny Röhl really likes Taylor Asgard, and I think we all know that the performances maybe haven't been there lately and he's slowing things down a little bit, but I do think the manager likes him and I think he'll continue to work with him. And I do think he is someone that could probably play in that role. He could probably lead the line. He's got the physicality for it. And then drop it into space, you'd like to think he would be a little bit more effective than Bojan Miovski. The system itself is something I was having a little bit of a joke about the other day. When I actually rarely got internet, like the data down here is terrible. And I was sitting going, I wonder if he might actually, with that Naderi signing, maybe go with the two up front and then the kind of box midfield behind, because it is very Red Bull. It's Leipzig. They used that a lot. I remember like Emil Forsberg and things like that playing in that type of system. That's a player I always think of. And yeah, I think it's, that Red Bull system is all about high pressing, high intensity, attacking transitions, vertical movements, all the kind of buzzwords you would expect. But actually, I think it's a type of football that the Rangers support would really like to watch, because it is aggressive. And it's not that kind of slow build up from the back that we've seen under Russell Martin. It is really about moving the ball forward as quickly as possible when you get it. Pressing high when the ball turns over, which I think we're starting to get more profiles that can do that. And then if that press is beaten, it's all about sitting a little bit deeper, sitting a little bit narrower. And I think we've seen that. We have seen that under Danny Röhl. I think that is what he's building towards. But again, that's why I like the pragmatism from the manager, because he's sitting going, I can't do that straight away. I'm going to have to build towards it. And I think that's what he's doing now. The recruitment's helping him build towards that end goal. And I think that's a sign of a really good manager. You can't just come in and say, this is how we play and that's it. So you're all going to have to get on board regardless of whether you suit it. This is how we're playing. I just don't think you get success in that in modern day football anymore. You have to be willing to adapt. And that is a big thing about the Red Bull system as well. It's adaptable. It's not a set shape. It's not, we're going to play 2 strikers every single week. You can change to a 4-3-3. You could change to a 4-2-3-1. It's more about the kind of principles of play. It doesn't really matter about the shape. But yeah, I do think it's something that would help us domestically. I don't know how you feel. I do think it's something at times, if we had 2 strikers, I just think we would be a little more threatening towards teams. I think if you can occupy their backline with 2 players, most teams kind of sit a little bit deeper against us. You get 2 players in the back line with one dropping in, and then you've got the kind of build-up play behind. I think that's going to be a lot more difficult to deal with teams in this league, and I can see why the manager's wanting to kind of push towards that. And look, we've got the options there now. You've got Naderi, you've got Chamiti, you've got Miovski, then you've got the likes of Asgard that could probably play up there as well. So I would argue you've got 4 players that could play in that 2 up front. So he's starting to get a little bit more of the kind of squad he's looking for, the shape he's looking for. So yeah, I had a little bit of a joke about it the other day in my personal Twitter feed. So it's quite funny that ended up happening at the weekend. But yeah, I really enjoyed it so far. And I think it's something we will look to do going forward. Maybe not every single game. The manager's good with that. But I certainly think you'll see it a lot more often.
Listen, the more strings to your bow you've got in any occupation, it can never be a bad thing, because at least if the more systems the players understand, as long as it's not overloaded at the one time, I just think it can only be helpful, especially even when you're playing against opposition, because if you understand the system and then you realise, oh, they're playing that way, that's going to allow us to defend it better. But yeah, The 4-2-2-2. Just remember when what's his chops? Ralph Ragnick played it with Man United. So I've always got just absolute horror flashbacks from that because it was a disaster. But yeah, I totally. We do have the personnel to go and play that style of system now, and we have struggled. You know, I know the irony, and I do realise that in the last two games we've gone out and scored 13 goals. But you know, prior to that, it's something we've not done. It's something we've been on here saying. If you have two strikers on a pitch, you're far more likely to get more goals. So I'm all for it. I know it's not as simple as that, but yeah, bring it on. Just before we'll go into the sort of next part, Ross, and it's the next two games for Rangers are absolutely massive. The first of those comes, in a couple of days' time against Motherwell. It's under the lights. It's away at Fir Park. You and I have been, especially in the stands at Ibrox, we've talked about this lots. I've been telling you that I think that Motherwell could be the kingmakers in this league. I think virtually all of the top 4-5 teams have gone to Fir Park and lost points, including, us, Celtic, Hearts, Hibs have all gone there. And then there's the big game on the Sunday with a odd 4:30 kickoff on the Sunday night against Hearts. But how significant are these next two games going to be for Rangers, Ross? And yeah, what are you expecting from these two games?
Two very difficult games. That's what I'm expecting. I think I am not looking forward to this game during the week at Fir Park. I think it's going to be such a difficult game for us. I think the way Motherwell have played this season, I think they'll be a really, really tough opposition for us. Now, the thing that might help us slightly is they haven't played any football in the last week because I think both of their games have been cancelled. Is that right? I think their game away at Dundee was postponed, and then their game in the Scottish Cup over the weekend against Aberdeen was postponed. That might potentially help us just because they haven't been playing as much football, and you'd maybe hope that they come into the game a little bit rusty, but I think that's going to be a really tough game. I think, of course, the aim should always be for any game, any double game like this, that Rangers come out of it with 6 points. I think if you come out of this with 4 points, I think if you get a draw at Fir Park and you beat Hearts at home, I think that's a great position to be in. I think if you get 6 points and you win both games, I think that makes Rangers title favourites. I think it's got to put us in that position that fans would probably sit back and go, okay, that's a really big statement. And it's actually what Danny Röhl referenced in the press conference after the game at the weekend against Queen's Park. He said that would be a big statement if we can go and do that. And I quite like that. I like the manager embracing it because we all know what's coming up. And maybe that's putting a little bit onto his players and saying, look, this is a big week. You're going to have to be mentally prepared for that. I quite like that. I don't really want him to shy away from these things. He did caveat it and say, look, that doesn't mean we're going to go and win the league. If you win these two games, there's a lot that can change. But I do think that it would be massive psychologically for us if we can get something out of this. Like I said, I think it's going to be a really tough two games. I think Hearts will be coming to Ibrox as well. Lots of confidence. They've still not lost to either Old Firm team this season. That is unbelievable. Like, really, that is such a good record. So they deserve lots of credit for that. What I'm more confident about in that game is you're only 3 points behind them now. And I do think Hearts will be starting to feel the pressure now because that gap is small. Like, any slip up now and both Rangers and Celtic are right behind them. Like, so that there's no gap anymore that they can kind of rely on. Think, oh, we've got a couple of games that we can kind of get through here. They're right behind now. So I'm hoping that we can go to Fir Park during the week. Of course, I'm hoping that we can win that game. That would be massive. Like a huge, huge result, especially because the other two teams in this title race are going to have to play Motherwell 2 times, and we're only going to have to play them once after that. Which is remarkable to talk about Motherwell that way, actually, to think how good a team they've been. But they deserve it. They deserve it. They've been brilliant this season. And then I think if you can get a result at Fir Park, even if it is a draw, which sounds a little bit negative, but I think I've maybe just been a little bit realistic about this, and title races up and down, it's always going to change. If you can get a result, some sort of result at Fir Park, and you're going into that game against Hearts at the weekend, I can just, the Ibrox atmosphere will be unbelievable because I think everyone will feel how important a game that will be. And I think it puts the pressure on Hearts. I think if they're coming to Ibrox and we're still only 3 points behind them, and they know if we win that game, there's a potential, the potential reality that we can go ahead of them and go top of the league. It's massive. It's huge. So, yeah, mate, hopefully I've not underplayed that. I think it's a huge week in the title race. I think a lot of people will sit back after this week and they'll have a better understanding of where this Rangers team's going to be at the end of it. You can't look. You certainly can't lose the title this week. I don't believe. But we can certainly help ourselves, put ourselves in a really good position to kick on. And like I said, I do think it will make us title favourites if we can get 6 points out of this next week.
Yeah, it's a huge week, and it just shows you, how the landscape of Scottish football changes if we are, and I think, well, it'll be interesting to see. Let us know in the comments what you think about that. Is a point away at Fir Park, is that a good result based off of how well Motherwell have been playing this year? But just before we wrap up, Ross, the manager did allude to it in the press conference. He expects Fernandes and Chermite to be fit and be available for both of those games. Do those guys go straight in at the starting 11 for you?
Oh, Manny Fernandes definitely, because I thought he was immense at Easter Road. Like, honestly, I thought he was so good. I think if it wasn't for Jack Butland and Manny Fernandes, we're losing that game. So for me, Manny Fernandes has been Rangers' best centre-back this season by a distance, to be honest with you. I think John Souttar's done well lately, but yeah, he would go straight back in. Yusuf Chermite is a bit of a different one. I do like the prospect of seeing Chermite and Naderi play together up front. But I think you could be right, what you said earlier in the podcast, that he will maybe take a little bit of time with Naderi. So I think if he's fit and he's raring to go, because obviously that sounds like a sore one he's had, where he's had stitches in the Achilles. That's a sore injury. So maybe he won't be fully fit. If he's not fully fit, I'd like to see him on the bench, and he's maybe someone that can help us off it. But yeah, if he's fully fit, I'd probably expect him to come back in. But again, it's good for us to have, players of that stature come back in terms of like their importance for the team this season. Like the two of them have been pretty much mainstays for the last couple of months in Rangers team. To have them back and available gives us a big boost. So yeah, I definitely expect them both to be in and around it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who starts that game. But look at you, you've already fallen in love with the big German up top already, that you're wanting them to start when big Chermite's back. But listen, I think that just about wraps it up for another episode of Let's Talk Rangers. So as always, a massive thank you to everyone watching, listening, tuning in. We genuinely love the interaction and the discussions that everybody brings to the channel. So if you want to support us, the best way to do it is by subscribing, giving the video a like, and making sure your notifications are turned on so you never miss an episode of Let's Talk Rangers. Believe it or not, around 80% of you guys watching still haven't subscribed, so it really makes a difference and really helps Let's Talk Rangers out. Let us know your thoughts on anything we've discussed today in the comments. We'll jump in and reply as always. And if you can't watch us, you can catch us through Let's Talk Rangers through all the usual audio platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We'll be back very soon to look at, or to discuss, the two massive games for Rangers against Motherwell away and Hearts at home. So take care, everybody, and we'll see you all again soon.